both looking very tense.
We're fine, honest.
Nothing to see here, ladies.
Come on.
You're being uncharacteristically shy, Ryan. Anyone might think you're trying to hide something.
I'm just surprised to know that you seem to know my whereabouts, mate. Are you keeping tabs on me or what?
Should I be?
Right, this is just getting weird now. If you're accusing me of something, why don't you just come out and say it?
Or you could do the decent thing and admit to what you've been up to.
I can't sit here any longer watching you two and your Willy swinging contest.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
Hello and welcome to episode 278 of The Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast that managed to move across an ocean quicker than Ryan has been able to move out of racist Kelly's flat. I'm Gavin.
And I'll be there for you when the rain starts to fall.
Too soon.
And I'll be there for you. Like I've been there before.
Stop. Please stop.
And I'll be there for you. Because you're there for me too.
Now, you may joke about this.
I'm not really joking.
As you sniff deeply into the microphone, which I will then later need to edit out.
No, because it's implying that I'm crying.
That one doesn't.
No.
Really affected by Matthew Perry passing away.
I think everybody of our generation has.
Could we be any more Gen X? You see what I did there?
I did see what you did there.
I'm feeling better.
Uh-huh. You are.
Just to get it out there.
Right, yes.
I'm feeling better.
You're not dying in a hot tub anytime soon.
I was a brave little soldier last week.
Oh, God. I thought you were dying.
Yeah.
It was almost as bad as that time you had COVID.
There's a reason for that. Yeah, I don't know if it was quite as bad as the first time, but it just comes over you so rapidly. Like 1 minute, you just kind of don't feel 100%, and then half an hour later, you just like, I said to you, I'm going to go to my bed, and I don't think I'm going to get up tomorrow.
And you didn't.
And I didn't. And I didn't get up on Sunday either.
You got up a little bit more on Sunday. You were good. You were on the road, sort of, to recovery. But Saturday, I took Stelly to bowling. I took Stelly to an estate sale. Stelly and I came home. 2 other children were dropped off at our house, and we all went to Five Nights at Freddy's. And you did not make a peep.
Nope.
The whole time. I was quite concerned that you would die while I was at Five Nights at Freddy's.
That didn't fucking stop you going, though.
And, well, I really kind of wanted to keep the kids out of the house while you were sick. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, well done.
No, but seriously.
No, I don't know if I heard you guys go, but I kind of woke up and the house was empty. And I came down for some orange juice and water. And I was kind of hungry and needed to make myself something to eat. And didn't have the energy, so just broke off a chunk of cheese, ate that over the sink, and then went back to my bed. I was pitiful. Pitiful.
You didn't even put that chunk of cheese between, 2 pieces of bread?
Nope. No, I did not.
Oh, my poor darling. Anyway, you're alive now.
Anyway, yes, it was a wee shame about Matthew Perry.
It really
I ended
was.
up in my deadened stupor watching quite a lot of seasons 8, 9 and 10 of Friends. It's really good.
Yeah.
It is really good.
It
I've watched it so often that I kind of forget how funny it is.
Yeah.
It was laugh out loud funny.
It's funny. And, apart from the lack of black people in New York, it's pretty much the perfect show. And I think an awful lot of that is down to one Matthew Perry. He was the best one.
What? I don't want to
He's
speak
the
ill
best
of him.
one.
I think Ross is really funny as well, though.
Yes, but everybody hates Ross.
And I think Phoebe's really good. Mm-hmm. It becomes clearer the more you get into it that Phoebe really is. The later the season, the more she's trying to distance herself from everyone else.
Right, yes.
She seems to hate everyone.
Yeah. And she's a tragic figure. She's this character in a comedy who grew up homeless and estranged from her mother who dies.
Her mother who kills herself.
Right.
And I think her pimp killed herself as well, or a pimp that was looking after her killed himself. She's surrounded by tragedy. She's
Right,
a
yes.
Shakespearean character.
Yes, absolutely. And here she is with people who complain about Daddy not paying the bill last week. And, Ross
My muffin.
and Ross and Monica, who have two really supportive parents who are okay with her living in her grandmother's rent-controlled flat, as opposed to selling it and making a lot of money. They're like, no, you live there. It's fine. It's worth millions of dollars, but it's okay.
Anyway. Shall we preamble, my dear?
Yes, please.
Could we get any more of that Corrie news?
There will be no British Soap Awards in 2024, despite a strong showing in 2023 and a scheduled return in 2025, for some reason. Not a single article I read about this could sufficiently explain why they're taking a year off despite the show doing really well in 2023.
It is very strange that it's...
Taking 1 year off.
And doesn't say why.
And doesn't say why. And
it seems to keep on quoting the Philip Schofield affair.
Right, but
amongst
that
them. I don't
shouldn't
see
have
what that has
anything to
anything
do
No, I don't see
with
why,
it at this
why
point.
one presenter has.
Right. Are they worried that the next person that it takes over a year to vet someone?
Might not be a bad thing.
Yeah, and I mean, if it did a bad job in 2023, if nobody watched the British Soap Awards in 2023, I would understand it better as well. But everybody was watching in 2023, and I think the bump in viewership kind of had something to do with the whole Schofield thing. I think people were like, ooh, are they gonna, because they had what's her name, Jane McDonald, do it, like, ooh, is she gonna mess up because she was just picked at the last minute and stuff.
Yeah, there was maybe sort of slowly drive past a car crash kind of thing about it, but it was fine. It was a fine show.
It was fine. It was good. It was good. Anyway, moving on. Courtney Boobs has left the building. Yay! And the country. She's left the building and the country.
We didn't disapprove of her that much, did we?
Well, I don't think that would have any bearing considering that she is now here in the United States of America.
Oh no, she doesn't know where we live, does she?
No.
Oh god. Whew.
She's not that far away though. She's only in Memphis to work on her first album. So she's becoming a musician now. Apparently, one of the first things she ever did is she appeared in a show to cast the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, she was in the Andrew Lloyd Webber kind of X Factor pop idol type thing. Was it the Maria one or was it the? No, she was somewhere over. No, yes, she was the
Wizard
Dorothy.
of Oz. Yeah, Dorothy.
She was. She didn't win it.
No, but
that,
apparently she did a good job.
But that was what launched her stardom.
Yes. Yeah, I watched it, and you'd never recognize her if you didn't know that was her.
Right, she can sing.
Kind of stunning. Yes. Meanwhile, Darren actor Ryan Early is set to play Prince Charming in a Cinderella panto, which is a bit of a stretch, but there we are. And finally, former Corrie star and Everton Football Club chairman Bill Kenwright has died at the age of 78. And my apologies, we would have talked about this last week, but Gav was on his deathbed.
Yep. Theatre impresario.
Apologies to his family and all that.
Yeah, you can tell really the impact of the guy when you see the broad spectrum of people who come out to give their condolences. It's clearly a man that has more than one thing on his who's who list.
Pretty huge.
And one of them chairmaning a football club.
Right.
As you do.
Yes. And that's Corrie News.
That's Corrie News, which moves us seamlessly into our feedback section. Everyone's a critic. Tricia wrote in this week, do either of you get distracted by Daisy's flip smartphone?
No, I barely notice.
I have now.
I barely notice.
Tricia writes, it was getting some heavy airtime on Wednesday's episode and Friday's. I work in New York City and literally have never seen anyone with one. They must be more tech forward in Weatherfield. It's a strange thing. It looks kind of like a compact, but it's folded up,
Yay.
and she unfolds it
Right.
to answer. Nobody else has got a phone like this.
Like an old flip phone.
Yeah. My favourite phone before an iPhone was a flip phone.
It must be so satisfying, because, back in the day, before cell phones, back in the dark ages when we were children,
When you could angrily hang up on somebody.
yes, you could angrily hang up on somebody. You could go, cling!
Fuck you.
Right. And you can't really do that with an iPhone. Because you're just, boop! And that's it.
Yep.
So,
But you can snap a flip phone shut properly.
it must feel so satisfying to be able to snap a flip phone in anger.
But the only time I've ever seen one has been in the Verizon store. I've never seen anyone use one.
I don't really notice what phones people have.
Oh, I do. Anyway, thanks, Richard. And thanks to everyone who wrote in with the many messages of good health that we received this week. They were very much appreciated. Feedback is always welcome. Send us your thoughts and I will probably read them out. Get us at thetalkofthestreet@gmail.com or our DMs are open at Corrie Podcast. And now we'll podcast for coffee.
Aw. Just reminds me of Central Perk.
Good times. Thanks to Ian Les Paul for our coffees this week.
Yay!
He writes, "You ruddy bloody trooper, you." Thanks, man. Hope you get swamped and drowned in sympathy coffees this week. Well, with yours.
Yay.
Get well, mate. Thank you so much, Ian. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate our...
And we appreciate that your wife allows you to still listen to us.
Right. And we appreciate our friends of the podcast, as always, also, but they get their own mention at the end
At the
of
end
the show.
of the show, yeah.
The Talk of the Street is and will always be free on your podcast provider and on the YouTubes. But if you think our show is worth anything more than the time it takes to listen to it, and if you want to show your appreciation, you can buy us next week's coffee by going to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/the Talk of the Street. And you can also sign up to be a friend of the podcast through the same link where, for as little as $2 a month, you can get a mention in the closing credits of each and every episode. And remember, you can always support the podcast for free. Get us in front of new listeners by liking, subscribing, rating and reviewing wherever you get your podcasts. And now, this.
Oh, welcome.
Oh, welcome to Last Year Tonight with me, John Oliver. Just enough time to quickly talk about Google Tracy Barlow.
Google Tracy Barlow? Because she's been missing so much?
No,
Oh, you're supposed to say that's right.
that's right. Fucking hell, I'm struggling so much. This was Adam's advice to Arnie the scaffolder, who was swinging the lead, as it were, with the building work at number 1.
Oh, yes.
And so Adam was threatening them with Tracy Barlow. I was Gavin and you were the proud owner of David the Gnome, nude.
Yeah, and I still haven't hung those up.
And also David the Gnome on the toilet.
Yeah, haven't hung that one up yet either.
So we talked about shitting gnomes for a good 5 minutes, as we do. You were going to buy a 40 grand tiger.
Didn't do it.
Thank God.
Where would we put it?
I'd rather think about where we would put the 40 grand. In our lovely warm bank account. This marked the start, I think, of our shift to Friday night recordings. Sean is a bit too Sean, so Todd doesn't miss an opportunity to provide a hint about Lawrence's big dark secret. What was his big dark secret again? Oh, he killed his wife.
Yes.
Much to Spider's shock, Max is invited to a Halloween party at Griff's racist flat. Arnie the Builder's back to finish the job at number 1, but inadvertently busts the toilet. Summer has a shocking change of heart when she discovers how much rehab costs these days. Fizz and Tyrone do their best to protect Hope from the serialisation of Stape's story, but end up making her more isolated. Nick can't duck. Zidane is off to that London. And Amy sorts everything out. Our moment of the week was the postie coming out with the porta potty. That was funny.
That was funny.
And our boring moment of the week was Toya's tickets for Weather Scream. Ooh. And that was Coronation Street. And the Talk of the Street this time last year.
Excellent.
We'll take a break and we'll be right back with this week's recap. And we're back. Shall we dive in, my dear?
Yes, please.
All right, so I've managed to condense what happened 2 weeks ago down to one paragraph each for those stories. So I will recap them real quick.
Sure.
And then jump into this week's story. So the first story tonight is, do you want to bet? Now, last week, Michael was suspected of being in cahoots with Stephen when D.A. Swain found him with a big pile of cash in his rucksack. However, this was from Ed, who was hiding his illicit gambling winnings. So he had to come clean to Joel, who was representing Michael, and also come clean to Ronnie about his gambling again. Ed promised that he was done, but when their recent investment came through, he was going to make a beeline for the casino and was only stopped when he conveniently bumped into Peter, who was in a mood to chat openly about addiction and the destructive impact it can have. So Ed changed his mind.
He did.
And we assume didn't gamble.
Good job, Peter Barlow, for being in the right place at the right time.
So on Monday, Michael, who doesn't currently work at the factory, turns up at the factory to speak with Sarah. He wants to use the money that his dad's given him to pay back some of what he owes because of the shenanigans that Stephen was up to. $6,000.
Which is
a drop in the ocean.
Yes.
Maybe a decent gesture.
Right, yeah, because he's like, I know that there are people who work here who could really use this.
But Sarah's like, forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Plus,
yeah,
Carla's in Spain trying to get some deals or whatever.
Why is it taking her so long?
Is that 2 weeks that she's been gone for? This is now a holiday, isn't it?
It seems so, yes.
And the Bailey's Glory is about to be arrested for looking far too fucking cute. Michael tells Dee Dee that Sarah has refused the money. Dee Dee tells him to keep his pecker up. Folk will come round.
Yes. And then there's some discussion about whether a pumpkin is a fruit or a vegetable.
Yes. It's a vegetable, isn't it? Or is that fruit?
Well, Michael says it's a fruit, and Dee Dee says it's a vegetable. I always consider them a vegetable.
I would say a vegetable.
Gourds and squashes and stuff. Because if a pumpkin is a fruit, then a squash and a zucchini are both fruits. And that just doesn't make any sense.
That's how my mum described it to me. At the Halloween party, Dee Dee has a go at Sarah for refusing Michael's money and not giving him his job back. Sarah reminds her what Michael did, which Dee Dee says Michael knew nothing about, unlike Sarah's knowledge of Stephen fleecing Audrey.
Right, yeah.
Which if she had told people, Michael would never have trusted Stephen, which is a fantastic point.
That's why she's a lawyer.
Right. Sarah goes round to see Michael, offers him his job back, and he is thrilled.
Yes.
And that's that done.
And nobody has told Carla.
Right. And one assumes that if Carla comes back, she's not going to be happy about this.
No.
Because she really does blame Michael for an awful lot of this.
Yes, she does.
Did we decide whether we thought that was reasonable or not? I think we decided that it was.
Yeah. Yeah,
it was kind of incompetent on
yeah,
Michael's
it was
behalf.
incompetent. But again, Dee Dee made an excellent point this week that has given me pause. Because as far as everyone knew, there was no reason to suspect that Stephen would do something underhanded.
Mm-hmm.
Michael was unaware of him ever doing anything underhanded. And if Sarah had said something, or if Carla had said something, although Michael was aware at this point that Carla had accused Stephen of drugging her.
Michael was of the opinion, though, I think, that Carla was round the bend again.
Right. And was also there when Carla apologized to Stephen to try to smooth things over.
Right.
So, yeah.
Maybe better just to give him his job back and...
Right. Let the chips fall where they may.
And let the chips fall where they may.
It's more punishment to work with Beth.
Very true. So yes, that was that for this week and last week, and we didn't get any more of Ed's gambling or otherwise. I was quite pleased that convenient as it was, the meeting between Ed and Peter a couple of weeks ago, it really did give them a chance to talk about this sort of thing.
Right.
And I think the convenience of it maybe drew the impact of it just a little bit for me, but it was nice to see the two of them talk, because you don't really see that sort of thing happening very often. And it was good to see those words having an impact on Ed. I just wonder if they could have done it a little bit more subtly than that. Well,
let's be honest. There's been more egregious bumping into one another's of convenience on the show.
Oh, it happens every
for
week.
This one. Yeah. So it's not like they don't do this all the time.
Good point. We shall move on then to our next story. And just a couple of scenes here for Play It Again, Sam. Last week, Sam decided, apropos of nothing, that he wanted to rekindle his relationship with Hope, and so he booked a table at the bistro on Halloween just for the two of them, and in doing so, reduced Nick to tears. Sam invites Hope along in Nina's roles, where Roy overhears and suggests that Natasha would be very proud of her son. And then on Monday this week, Sam and Hope show up for their Halloween party date, while in the background, Nina surprises everyone by taking her front teeth out. What the fuck did she just do there? and once she did it and she put it back in, it was like, how brave was that? Because it's very much an industry that being an actor on TV,
Right.
where your appearance is super important, and to prove that she had falsers in her front teeth as well, and take them out and put them back in again, kind of make a joke of it.
Right.
I thought, God, she's got guts to do that, I think.
Oh.
Don't you think?
Well, yeah, but I thought it was brave because of the fact that she had her teeth kicked out by, what's his name? ITV Corrie.
I don't think they kicked her teeth in real life just so she could do that.
No, but it kind of... Does the actress in real life have false teeth?
I presume so, because she took falsers out.
Yeah, but...
They
Movie
managed
magic.
they managed to hide Jack's leg right enough.
Movie magic. You know, I thought it was just, I can take this really huge tragedy in my life and turn it into something else.
Do you know, I was so fooled by it that I assumed, and I don't know that this isn't the case,
Right.
but I just assumed that she didn't have front teeth in real life. But either way, on the character's perspective or the actresses, on Molly Gallagher's perspective, I thought it was quite the decision to do that.
It'd be like if I put my my mouth protector in and did the podcast with my mouth protector in.
Yeah. I don't think anyone would thank you. But hey, at least you wouldn't grind your teeth.
Right. Which,
Which you don't typically do as we're doing this.
Not when I'm awake, no.
So anyway, Sam talks about how he doesn't believe in the one, in inverted commas, but he wouldn't want to be there with anyone else. Hope brings up Natasha's death anniversary, but Sam doesn't want to talk about that. Makes it very clear that he doesn't want to talk about that, and goes off for some ice cream.
Yes.
And that's as far as that goes.
Yes.
A strange little
conversation.
Just
for
weird
a 12-year-old.
Exactly. How he doesn't believe in the one.
Right. That statistically there can't only be one person for every one person.
When did he become this guy?
I don't know. We get so little of Sam these days.
But everything that we see of him would suggest that he's kind of stable and his character he hasn't changed that much. But this was a very odd thing for him to say.
Right.
It was very odd for him to take the lead, I think, in the relationship.
And the
to start
conversation,
with. And to bring it up in the conversation was just doubly weird. And Hope seemed oddly distracted by the whole thing anyway.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
They were very awkward with one another.
I wonder if his reaction to her wanting to talk about Natasha has some bearing on where this was going, because Nick was worried about it last week and cried a little bit about it.
She doesn't mention it until after he does the whole awkward the one speech, which I think he intended to be romantic, but it didn't come out that way.
Wasn't it? I don't think you're that
12.
I don't think you're that special, but you're special enough.
Right.
Is kind of the message that was coming out of that.
I don't believe in the one, and yet you're the one. For now.
You're the one right now. Yep.
Later on in the week, there's a conversation with Eliza where she brings up this rekindling.
Yeah, and she says that the group chat's gone quiet.
Yeah.
Don't be all doing that on me now just because you two are back together again. Because I thought that in the absence of Hope, Sam had been trying to rekindle something with Eliza, but that doesn't seem to be the case either.
And also, I don't know if I'm comfortable with the show worrying about the love lives of 12-year-olds.
Right.
Is this really what this show is about?
Well, it doesn't really get the love life of 20-somethings any better, really.
Well, yeah, more on that later.
Yeah. All right. We're flying through this.
Yes.
Our next storyline tonight is Making a Murderer. So last week, Rita tells Audrey that before she was run over, Stephen had told Jenny that she wasn't going to hurt her. Armed with this, Audrey tells D.S. Swain, who promptly arrests Peter on suspicion of Moida. During the interview, though, it becomes very clear that Peter couldn't possibly have known anything about this, and who could assume that those weren't Stephen's intentions after all, and he's released and the investigation dropped, although Swain does seem a bit suspicious of Peter and his demeanour as he leaves. With everyone worried that he's about to get smacked into the booze again, Peter goes to start smoking again instead in the community garden where Toya checks them, talks him down, and they have a lovely moment before Peter heads off for a meeting.
Yes.
So much stock seemed to be getting put into what Jenny said Stephen said.
Right.
Just because a guy says that he's not going to hurt you doesn't mean
that he's not going to hurt you. Right. It's hearsay anyway. It would never hold up in court.
No. I guess Jenny could testify that that's what he said. But anyway, it's
Right.
for Audrey to put so much
Yeah.
stock into this seemed very unreasonable.
You know what I am appreciative of, though? They seem to have toned down the confusion that Audrey was experiencing initially. Mm-hmm. Calling Stephen clonking Sarah over the head an accident.
Yes.
And he wasn't really all that bad, even though he killed people. Sort of thing. I'm glad they've toned that down and she seems less confused.
Yeah, there's only so far you can go with he's the misunderstood serial killer.
Right.
Even though there were accidental elements of it. The second that he didn't immediately go to the police.
Right.
I don't think we really have any sympathy for him
No,
anymore.
no. The second he decides he's going to hide Leo's body.
Yes.
And burn his clothes. Yes.
Makes him look a little bit suspicious.
That bridge is burned.
So on Monday this week, Peter's in the cabin chatting to his sponsor, I think, about his upcoming meeting. Audrey comes in and immediately starts snarking at him, telling him to enjoy his freedom while it lasts. Her nose is put out of joint, though, when Peter calmly explains that the police have let him go and the investigation's done. Later, Audrey's on Maxine's bench when Ken comes along. Audrey angrily tells him that she intends to go back to the police to demand that they reopen the case. Ken insists that Peter regrets what he did. Audrey says Stephen did too.
No, he didn't.
Ken reminds Audrey that Stephen is dead, murdered a bunch of people, and Peter is an alcoholic that every day is a struggle for. Mm-hmm. This, for some reason, seems to chime with Audrey, and she goes to see
Which
Peter.
is weird because I'm quite sure somebody mentioned this to Audrey already. Mm-hmm. Like a member of her own family had said, look, this is an alcoholic, and also how would you feel... how do you think Ken would feel if Peter gets sent down and stuff? And she didn't seem to care until Ken says it. But I think this is the second time Ken has said it, because I thought he said this something along these lines when they had their wee tea and Audrey stormed out in a huff.
Right.
As well.
So maybe it's finally sinking in then?
Right, yes.
Who knows? So Audrey goes to visit Peter. She says life is too short for hate. She's spoken to Ken, and she doesn't want to see anyone else suffer because of Stephen. Now pop the fucking kettle on. And they end up chatting about Audrey's gran who took her to church and the statue of Mary with 7 swords through her heart. Child Audrey, which is kind of hard to imagine, asks why the statue was like that, and her gran said, that's what it's like to be a mother.
Truth.
The two of them chat reasonably from each other's perspective, and Audrey tells him to stay sober. Peter says he has great support, so that's good.
Yes.
On Friday, Peter is ready to go back to work, or Peter has actually just finished his first shift back at work when he bumps into Toya and Nina's roles. He explains the developments with Audrey, but he is having trouble accepting forgiveness. Toya says he's got through worse, and they arrange to go to one of Peter's meetings later after he's had a nap. Then Simon turns up at Peter's flat. He's asking to kip there for a few days as there's a water leak at his place or something.
Right.
Which normally just happens at the school, doesn't it? Peter agrees, warns him that Ryan will be moving back in. Well, we'll see about that. And they arrange to go out for lunch, so Peter calls Toya to give her a rain check on the meeting.
Right. But when he does that, he doesn't say, I have to give you a rain check because Sai showed up and I want to spend some time with my son. He just says something else has turned up.
and then weirdly gets a hiccups.
Right. It's like, why can't you be more specific? Because being specificity erases suspicion.
Well, and then the
Which-
same kind of thing happens in the next scene.
Right, yes.
Because later, Toya's not for taking no for an answer, and she comes round anyway.
Well, I think she was concerned because he wasn't specific enough, with the whole something turned up.
Oh, we don't have to say that we think that. We know that because she said that she's checking up on him.
Right.
And says that there's another meeting happening in half an hour, so why don't they go along to that? So Peter agrees to go out, telling Simon that Toya's got car trouble. Why are we lying to Simon
Why
now?
are we lying to Simon about going to a
Simon
meeting?
knows you're an alcoholic.
He knows you go to meetings. He's an adult child. Why are you making things
He's an adult
up?
child?
Yes. He's Peter's adult child. Just like Nick is our adult
Oh, I
child.
see what you mean, yes.
Yes.
It's like he's a man baby.
So confused, aren't you?
He's not really a man baby. Peter's more the man baby.
No.
Or he was anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so weird why he's making things up when he doesn't have to.
None of this bodes well.
No, because all he's doing is putting suspicion in Simon's head that something's
That's
going on
absolutely what he's
between
doing.
him and Toya.
Absolutely. And they obviously have history.
History, right.
Is he ashamed? Is that why he wouldn't say something to Simon?
I can't
I think
imagine
Simon
why he
knows
would-
what
yeah.
he's going through.
Yeah.
What he's been through
And
recently.
he knows he goes to meetings and he knows he's an alcoholic. It doesn't make any sense. It seems like the only reason why that's here is so that Simon suspects that he and Toya are hooking up behind Carla's back so that he and Carla can get into an argument later.
Right.
And then he sails away on a boat or something.
Yes. Did we get any phone calls from Carla this week? I don't think we did.
I don't think so either.
We did last week,
Yes.
but apparently... Oh no, I think we maybe got a little conversation. Maybe Adam and Peter were talking about it. Or no, Daniel and Peter were talking about
Carla being away. Yeah.
and it takes as long as it takes, and
Right.
he doesn't know when she's going to be back.
Right. Which is weird.
Now, she went over with very express intentions to
Right.
to resolve a business dispute.
Right. How long does that take? How many times can you demand that people take a meeting with you before you just kind of have to accept the no?
Right. She's on vacation at this point, definitely. She's on the playa, she's got a margarita, and she's just enjoying some of that autumnal sun in Mallorca, or wherever it is
Yeah.
that she is.
She's got her Ray-Bans on.
Oh, God, yeah.
And she's saying, all right, ball bags in Spanish. And I don't know what that would be.
Spanish. Hola, escroto. I think is probably the closest translation that we're going
Hola,
to get.
escroto. Yeah, that's. I should have known that would be the Spanish for scrotum.
Such a beautiful language, isn't it? Well, it just
Escroto,
dances.
yes.
It dances off the tongue.
Yes.
But
What's
not
the
like
German for scrotum?
Diversion of the week. Hallo, Hodensack.
Holden sack.
I've worked with a guy who could speak German fairly fluently, and he enjoyed telling me that the German for nipple is Brustwarze, which literally translates to breastwort.
Yes.
Beautiful language.
Beautiful,
The
beautiful
language of love.
So it's bag for your testicle, basically.
A holdalls for your testicles.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other language that you're interested in seeing while I'm here? Japanese, maybe?
Sure. One more. Let's leave Europe. That makes sense.
Konnichiwa, inyo. There we go. Or is that how you say it?
Konnichiwa, inno.
Ino. Konnichiwa,
I put a
Ino.
nye on it that wasn't there. Ino.
Ino.
Konnichiwa, inno.
It's simple.
Yeah.
It's simple.
Yes.
So now Carla knows how to do business in Spain, Germany, and Japan.
Yes.
I think she's on the road to success
I think
here.
I prefer the Japanese.
Hola, scroto's pretty good.
Yes.
All right.
I just like the word konnichiwa. Yes. It reminds me of one of my favorite bands, Chibo Mato.
All right, let's move on to our next storyline, which is this still a thing? Last week, the show remembers that Asha is training to be a paramedic. You must have loved that.
I did.
You must
I
have been
did.
so
I was
disappointed
so
that we didn't
mad
talk about
that we couldn't talk about it last week.
That was an hour right there talking about
Right.
this, because it was January the 2nd, I think,
Right. When
of
she
this year, when Nina took a spill.
Right, into a pond.
Sprinting into the canal of whatever it was. And Asha decided at that point she was going to... She had her life's destiny all mapped out for her now.
Yes.
She was going to be a paramedic.
Yes.
And then never mentioned it again.
Right.
Well, she mentioned it last week.
And she mentioned it this week.
She did.
The show has remembered. I take full credit for that.
Good. Good for you. Apparently, it's going well, and she has her first ride along with Isla, who was fab and who will no doubt be the centre of an affair before too long. Meanwhile, Asha is given more cause to believe that Courtney Boobs is taking Aadi for a ride when she pretends to be sick to avoid going for a job interview, and then claims to be too sick to help decorate the flat, all of which makes Aadi worry that she's pregnant, which she isn't, and he quickly learns that the sickness is more down to Courtney's idleness.
And anxiety.
So she says.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So-
hilarious that he's like, she's throwing up and it's morning. She must be pregnant.
We have sex, he announces to the cafe. On Monday, Nina rolls the chats about the Halloween do at the bistro. Asha apparently has nothing to wear, but Bernie thinks she should go as a sexy paramedic now that that's what she is. Mm-hmm. Bernie takes a good minute to describe what that is.
A sexy zombie paramedic.
Mm-hmm. And then Aadi comes in, sees Dev, and immediately leaves.
Yeah, he does a Grandpa Simpson.
Yes, he does.
Literally.
Later, yes. Later, Dev and Bernie talk about the situation with Aadi. Bernie reckons that life is too short for family disputes and begs him to talk to Aadi and just accept his romantic choices, whether he approves of them or not. So Dev goes round to Aadi's to make peace. Aadi reluctantly gives his dad a chance. Dev's got a snake plant, which Aadi takes as a dig to Courtney Boobs, but Dev insists not, apologises for interfering in the relationship, and Aadi apologises for smashing the kebab shop window. And for a moment, just a moment, they're cool, until Dev starts talking about his Aadi's new job working at Freshco, stacking shelves, and he belittles Aadi, saying that he could be working in a shop he will one day own, which he would be doing if it wasn't for that whorebag Courtney Boobs.
Right.
And at this, he must smell her perfume behind him, and he just stops and says, she's behind me, isn't she?
Right. And he kind of like implies that she's like a gold digger or something. And it's like, of what? Aadi has nothing.
Yeah. Dev tells Courtney Boobs to go back to her husband and offers her a ride. Aadi's heard enough and throws his dad out before he chucks him out. And later at the Poke Flat, Aadi's looking for Courtney Boobs to help decorate the bathroom, but she's sulking about the altercation with Dev. Aadi promises to support them no matter what it takes, and he'll make this work. She hugs him, gets weepy, and then reluctantly agrees to help in the bathroom. On Wednesday at the Poke Flat, Courtney Boobs is secretly checking her phone when Aadi comes in to announce that he's got the job at Freshco's.
Yay!
She seems oddly emotional, hugs him, tells him he can achieve anything he wants. He invites her to afternoon tea with Asha and Nina, and she okays it before nipping out. And it turns out it's only Nina who turns up for afternoon tea.
Yes.
Asha apparently is running late, and so apparently is Courtney Boobs. And it's still just the two of them later. Aadi calls Courtney, but then there's a knock at the door, and it's Darren who's come for Courtney's things. They've got back together, and she didn't want a scene, so sent him round to do her dirty work. And Darren is remarkably chipper, considering that Aadi's been banging his wife 6 ways to Sunday here.
Right. And also seems remarkably chipper for someone who had already filed for divorce and been like...
Yes. So he says to Aadi, oh, she's waiting back in the bath for me. So, what do you think they've been doing here?
Right.
It's strange to bring that up.
Right.
In front of the kid who's been
Banging his wife.
banging his wife. Anyway. He gathers up her stuff, tells Aadi that she's already blocked him. It's over. He tells Aadi to move on, and then he leaves. Later, Aadi is sitting sniffing Courtney's jumper, the only thing that he has left for her.
Young Danielson.
Yes. It's a sex cardigan in the making, isn't it?
Yes.
Nina points out that she could hardly wait to go back to her life of luxury. Aadi blames Dev for some reason, and then blames Nina, and then asks Nina not to tell Asha or Dev he can't cope with the pile on. So Asha gets home late. She's been having drinks with Isla, the obvious future affair fodder. Nina stands by Aadi's request and doesn't tell her about Courtney Boobs going back with Darren Boobs. Asha is too busy talking about how great Isla is.
Right, yeah. And that was weird. It's like, oh, she couldn't make it for afternoon tea. And instead of like going directly home, she goes out for drinks, even though there's afternoon tea leftovers.
So leaving Nina to have afternoon tea with her brother.
Right.
Not very considerate.
No.
Much later and alone, Aadi tries to call Courtney again, but once more it goes straight to voicemail, so Aadi picks up a framed picture of the two of them and smashes it in a furious rage, where it lands on the floor next to a carbon monoxide alarm that we're very careful to notice. And that started to make me think, was this what happened to Shelley? And what would the ramifications of that be? None, really. She
No.
was going to die.
Right.
She died maybe a bit earlier than she was
Yeah.
going to. But why would we see the carbon monoxide alarm?
I didn't notice it.
Yeah, the shot stayed on it for a few seconds.
Did it?
And you could see carbon monoxide alarm written on the surface of the thing.
Well,
Strange.
Maybe they weren't they supposed to be like putting those up in the bathroom and stuff? Wasn't that one of the things that Aadi wanted her to help do earlier?
No, I think it was just paint, wasn't it?
Right, but they had to take it down to paint.
Well,
They
maybe.
got to put it back up.
Just a strange thing to focus on.
Right.
If you focus on a carbon monoxide detector, somebody's about to die of carbon monoxide poisoning.
Right, yes. However, this week was the first week that I noticed the rainbow down to boogie poster in Daniel and Daisy's flat.
Is it not Yes Sir I Can Boogie?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
And I thought, oh, they're Scottish football fans? Because that's a Scottish football anthem.
Is it?
Yes, sir. I can boogie. Da, 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 da.
I saw that, I noticed it for the first time, and it was in like nearly every shot of them in their flat this week. And I'm sure that doesn't mean that they're going to start boogieing or go to Scotland to watch a football match.
That's right. Boogieing is exactly the same as carbon monoxide poisoning. So on Friday, Dev bumps into a sheepish Aadi outside the tram station and tries to apologise again, invites him and Courtney Boobs over for dinner. Aadi says he'll need to check and just continues walking. At home later, Aadi phones Dev to cancel the dinner plans when Courtney Boobs comes back on her own. She says she's here to check in and make sure he's okay. He asks her to come back, but she says it's too late because her contract is up and hasn't been renewed. She tells him he was a jump start for her and Darren. He asks her to just have an affair with him then instead. Oh dear, 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 dear. Courtney says it's over and tells him to be anything he wants to be, which is the end of Bugsy Malone, I think. He tells her that he loves her. She tells him he doesn't, and he'll realise that. And she says all of this in Scouse and then leaves.
Yay.
Dev and Nina are heading off for their meal because their meal was going ahead whether Aadi was there or not, apparently.
Right, yeah.
And Nina nips off to buy tampons, but she's really seen Aadi in the community garden.
And it's once again weird that Asha isn't there with them at that point. And also, is this the first time the word tampons has appeared on Coronation Street, do you think?
One of the few times. It's not every week that I have to say tampons.
Well, not on the podcast anyway.
Well, we do have a cat called Tampons. So I guess that counts. Isn't that right, wee tampons? You're right, hen.
We are absolutely getting a new cat named Tampons.
So long as it's a
soon
boy. It has to be a boy, though.
As soon as one more cat dies.
2 and you've got a deal. So, Aadi explains about his meeting with Courtney and how he's just been a pawn in Courtney and Darren's game of chess. Nina tells him to just go to the meal, tell them, face the music, but Aadi reacts badly to this.
Yes, he
And
does.
storms off. Nina takes his petulance quite well, actually,
Yeah.
and goes off to get her dinner.
Nina is very cool in her stride.
Yep.
So-
And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Now, how did you feel about the storyline ending?
It feels weird.
Doesn't it?
It feels weird insofar as it feels unplanned. I mean, on Wednesday, when she just didn't show up to pick up her stuff, the show, I think, either the show started posting or the newspaper started posting that's it. That's Stephanie Davis now out of Coronation Street. We're saying goodbye to Courtney. Ian McLeod has been happy with how this has gone, and the door has been left open for her to come back. I thought that was strange. I thought it was strange that Ian McLeod is quoted as saying, "Didn't you do well?" That seems like a weird thing to draw attention to, I think. I don't think he says that to everybody who leaves. So
No.
maybe he actually genuinely means it, or maybe he doesn't mean it and is covering that up by saying it. Who knows? I don't know. It just seemed like a weird thing to say. But if that was how that was supposed to end, I can't think of a more sudden and awkward end of a storyline
And boring.
arc. You can't call it an arc because the descent isn't there.
No,
it just
the
goes to
it's
point,
just
just
dropped
disappears.
off a cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah. The articles that I read about, her moving forward with her singing career and everything. And I think this is a quote from her people, not the show's people, that said, Stephanie, of course, was thrilled to be on Coronation Street and would have loved to continue to play the man-eater Courtney for many years to come. But the showrunners believed that the story had run its course, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It kind of feels like, and we kind of said this from the start because of the language when this storyline started. We and a number of other people who do this sort of thing for the show were like, it feels like they've misread the room, that this is the sort of storyline that would have been, which would have taken off quite well and been well received in the 80s or 90s, but that in this day and age, it feels a bit icky.
It certainly didn't feel like the show appreciated that this was a grooming story.
Right. Which it absolutely was.
Yeah.
And so it kind of felt like the show kind of realized that this was not being well received and was being viewed as a grooming story. And so made the decision to pull out, as it were, as quickly as possible.
Now, I'm not sure that the show gives two fucks about whether storylines are well received or not.
Well, I think
so long as people are talking about it, that's pretty much what the aim is.
Right.
However, there have been storylines in the past where rumour has it a character just hasn't landed well with the audience,
Right.
or it isn't gelling, or the storyline just isn't working.
Right.
And they've had to very quickly rewrite it.
Yeah.
This feels very quickly rewritten.
Right.
Because it isn't an ending.
Right.
If you were to read this as a book,
Right.
and just with maybe 2 hints of her in one episode kind of being a bit maudlin,
Right.
she went out one day and she never came back.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, I've been reading like 200 pages of this book. Where's the ending?
Yeah. And I mean, you say the show doesn't give two fucks, but I think when it comes to,
By and large.
but I think when it comes to, oh, we're going to write this story that will have comedic elements to it about a very young man with an older woman, and it'll be great and people will love it and it will be sexy and stuff. And then like, as soon as they announce it, people say, wait a second, this is a grooming story. It kind of feels like that's not what they want. That's not how they thought it would be received as.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with that.
It's not just that it's a story that nobody likes or that it's a character nobody likes, although that is a problem too. And yet Lauren is still on the show, but more on that later.
Right.
Yeah, it kind of feels like there is more to this story falling off a cliff, and everybody's being very careful about the way they word it, because like there were other articles too that were really weird, like in the headline it would say controversial character has quit the show or has been axed from the show, but then in the actual body of the article it says beloved character Courtney Vance has left the building, sort of thing. So there are some mixed messages out there.
Yeah, they typically use language like beloved and star when
It's somebody who's been on the show for 2 days.
When she's not beloved and she's not been in the show for that long. So it isn't really you can't call her a Corrie star, otherwise you start to call the guy that was the postie the other week a star because he starred in the show, but that's not really how the star thing works.
No.
I don't know. It struck me as being odd that Ian McLeod took the time to say that he was really pleased with how her character went. That sounded to me like it was answering a question that nobody had asked.
Right. And he didn't do that for Ryan Early.
No.
Who is also now out of the show.
But But he also then went on to say that the focus for Aadi is going to be Amy.
Which
And
we
that's-
would have
that-
liked from the very beginning.
That's where his future is, and I don't think he's been as explicit about that before. And we've always kind of hoped for that,
Right, and that they
because
adopt a Great Dane.
That always made sense, and yeah, they
And
had
buy
to,
a van.
and they had to be a detective agency,
Right.
So, yeah, just a really weird end to a really weird storyline
Right.
that has never sat well with me. I'm pretty sure it hasn't sat well with you, and really hasn't sat well with anybody that we
I
correspond
haven't
with.
really seen anybody praise this storyline or think this storyline was good.
No.
And I hated Stephen. I hated Stephen from the very beginning.
Right.
And I thought that storyline went on far too long and it was ridiculous and far too camp. But there were people like you who really loved it
Loved it.
and loved him.
Couldn't get enough of it.
Right.
Still kind of sad that it's not a thing anymore.
Right. So, so for it to be a storyline that nobody was in for, nobody liked.
And normally you get little clues that
Yeah.
this is a storyline that isn't going to be going forward, or she's about to leave, or this,
Right.
It just felt very, very quickly
Right.
rushed and dealt with, and I don't know.
I mean,
doubt
we knew
will-
that she kind of hated it there and was lazy and didn't want to help paint and was out shopping with some money.
Yeah, but so what was the point of the whole thing
Right.
then?
There was no point. There was no point.
We were waiting for the point.
It never came.
It's never going to arrive. All right, let's
Anyway.
move on to our next storyline, which is Tim's mum about the house.
Woo! I forgot she was in it last week.
She was. And this will probably be the last time we can use this music for at least a little while. Last week, Tim continues to have third-person flashbacks. After a lot of back and forth, George ill-advisedly arranges Stephen's funeral for Audrey, which Gail has reservations about how this will affect Tim. Tim catches wind of the arrangements and swears to sabotage it, which he does by boxing the hearse in and locking himself in his cab and breaking the key off in the ignition. Sally eventually talks him down and the funeral is allowed to proceed, although Gail is now so worried about Tim that she refuses to go, so it's just Audrey and Sarah. With Tim off in a huff somewhere, Sally speaks to Gail and takes her to the funeral, which is photographed by those fucking paps. Tim sees the headline and goes to leave Sally for her supposed disloyalty, but instead eventually confesses to her about his stress and his nightmares and his PTSD.
I felt so bad for George because, he's like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm standing on my principles.
And
then,
those principles are also balanced on top of Phelan's ashes that he was looking after for the best part of
right,
4 years.
right, which he didn't cremate Phelan, it was his dad, but still, it was in there. And I think that and his relationship with Eileen has a part of that, you know what, I don't want to do this. I'm not comfortable doing this.
Right.
And I think that's part of why Todd didn't want to do it and was not comfortable with it. But then, Audrey keeps railing at him. Oh, your dad would have never done something like this to me. And how dare you? And it's like, there's a perfectly good other funerary place that doesn't give a fuck about the morals, the morality of the people
Anything.
that they're burning up.
As long as there's a buck.
Right. Go to them.
Right.
The man said no.
Right.
Leave him alone. And Gail and other people are trying to explain to her, look, he's got to run his business on this street. People didn't like Stephen. Stephen murdered people.
Right. Yeah. On Monday, Tim's been up all night staring into space, but at least his third-person flashbacks seem to have subsided. Sally's worried about him and thinks he should stay at home and watch telly rather than go to work. In Nina's role, Sally ends up chatting to Steve about Tim's condition and she asks Steve to speak with him. He says he already has, but agrees to do so again and says that he doesn't mind speaking about feelings as he's a modern man now, but he's a little taken aback when she expects him to do it right now.
Her and Debbie, which was really funny, because why is Debbie in on this?
I know. Sally calls Eileen to warn that Steve won't be into work. Eileen apparently is cool about all this.
Yes.
Although off screen.
Yes.
So Steve goes round to see a suspicious Tim who knows that Sally sent him. Steve basically tells Tim to get over himself. Who among us hasn't tried to sabotage the funeral of a man determined to kill us? And he orders him to go on the mystery tour that he has planned. So Steve, despite the horror that Tim has experienced near a canal and in the trunk of a car, Steve drives Tim to the river to show him the contents of the trunk of his car.
Yes.
He's not about to reenact Stephen's confinement. He wants to go fishing like the suit shoe guy and the other bloke do on the TV, and the boot is full of tackle.
Yes. And all of this is hilarious because we all remember the conversation Stephen and Jenny had about whether or not Tim fishes. And Jenny said, oh no, he's far too lazy to fish, which is the weirdest thing anybody has ever said about fishing.
But she seems to have been right.
Well, no, she seems to have been right that he doesn't like fishing, but not because he's too lazy. Because that's what sort of energy does it take to fish? None.
Tim doesn't want to, but we all know that he's going to because the show wouldn't drive out into the middle of nowhere for one tackle joke. Tim slowly comes round to the idea of fishing as it gives him and Steve a chance to talk about Bubbles the chimpanzee who recently turned 40. Tim has bad memories of fishing thanks to Tim's fucking dad being an asshole.
Right. So that's why he doesn't like fishing. It's because his dad was an asshole.
And Steve says how things haven't been right between him and Tracy
and
since Oliver died. I'm like,
what?
Really? Since when?
What? You guys have gone through so many other things, like Amy getting raped and Amy getting upskirted.
They do address the rape because Steve says that he still can't believe they didn't kill the guy.
Right, yes. But it's like, there was no evidence throughout all of that Tracy and Steve weren't a united front and loved one another very much.
No, there was maybe a bit of... Steve's probably a bit depressed here.
Right.
But when he said that about him and Tracy, like...
What?
Nonsense.
That's
This
so
is
dumb.
nonsense.
Oliver's been dead forever.
Oh.
Well, in the show...
Right.
It seems like forever, because it was like, what, 2 years ago?
4 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a while.
Leanne seems to have, moved on.
Nick still is an emotional wreck about it. But
right, but
whatever.
that's more that he's an emotional wreck about Natasha, which is the thing that should be concerning Leanne, but never mind.
Tim says bad things happen in life and he should stop torturing himself. Tim says Steve is his best mate. Steve says Tim is top 5. And then they catch a fish.
That was hilarious.
Back home, Tim is now into fishing and shows off a picture of the tiny fake fish that he caught. He put it back. Sally's pleased to see him chipper for a change. And on Wednesday, in Nina's Rolls, Tim tells Kirk and Steve that he has been investigating getting fishing equipment and was shocked to see how expensive it can be. Kirk thought he was talking about getting his hole. Oh, Kirk. Gail goes to see Sally, who has made a cheesecake. She gets the tub out of the fridge, but is shocked to find that instead of cheesecake, it's full of maggots and Gwyneth Paltrow's head.
John Doe has the upper hand.
Sally is going to kill Tim.
It was hilarious.
But then for some reason, Brian and Max turn up to take care of the maggots, and Max is cleaning out
the refrigerator.
Sally's fridge.
Yeah.
What
happened to the cheesecake? Because the cheesecake wasn't underneath the maggots, was it? You would think Tim would have moved it first.
Did Tim eat the whole cheesecake? Now, Homer, don't you eat this pie. Maybe that's what happened.
Apparently, because this is the 1950s now, when Sally and Gail saw those maggots, they ran screaming from the house, yelling, "Eek! Eek!"
They stood on chairs and they pulled their petticoats
their skirts up. Yep. And did a little dance on the chair.
Dice falling out and flick knives and playing cards and stuff.
Hairpins.
For some reason, I've said that about Brian and Max.
Right,
Sally,
so that's why Brian and Max are there, because they witnessed them running out of the house and screaming.
Yeah. Sally wants them flushed. Tim comes in wanting to know why people who are never in his house are in his house. And Sally instructs him to deal with his Tupperware of filth.
And Brian is so sad because he was going to take them home and raise them as his own.
At the end of the day, Sally's pleased Tim has a new hobby. And they're about to go off and get their hole when some maggots fall out of Tim's pockets. Yum yum. That's as far as we get with that.
He was warming them up.
Oof. Jesus. Needs a warning. Yeah, I mean, the main thing, oddly, from that was the Steve and Tracy revelation, which
Right.
is still taking me by surprise.
Yeah, because there's been no evidence of that at all. At all. We've barely seen Tracy. We just saw Tracy last week for the first time in forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to the point that people thought that Tracy was sacked from the show.
Oh, they did?
That Tracy, yeah. People were like so relieved when she showed back up again. They thought that she was gone forever.
This is odd dates, though, man, because Eileen's not been in it for ages, and Aggie's
Aggie.
not been in it for ages. And everybody's really worried about Aggie.
I'm seriously worried about Aggie.
Because it's not getting addressed.
No. I don't know. Maybe she got sick and tired of so many, Aggie's a bad chef
Oh, jeez.
jokes.
I've heard enough of them for a lifetime, honestly.
Seriously. But we have this really huge Ed storyline, and Aggie's not here.
I know, it always seems weird when one character like that has such a, arguably the biggest story for Ed,
Ever.
right?
At least since, Ronnie thought Michael was his son.
And Aggie's nowhere to be seen.
Yeah. It's weird.
And there's only so much you can get from pretending to call her.
Right.
And then it ends up just drawing attention to the fact that
And
when was the last time we saw her?
people saying that she's going to visit her auntie who is sick. At this point, auntie has either gotten well or is dead.
Right. I'm glad that Tim seems to be on the mend. I'm glad that Tim is talking to Steve. I'm glad that those awful third-person flashbacks seem to be over and done with now, because they were just driving me mad.
They were so...
The one in the drone above the forest,
Yeah.
looking down at Tim in
And the car.
inside the trunk.
Right.
Tim's not in the shot
At all.
anywhere.
It's just the car.
Right. Come on, guys.
Oh.
Come on. All right. Move on then to our next storyline, which is Poster Boy. On Wednesday, Dylan is at home disappointed by Sean's offerings for lunch, so Sean decides that it's high time that he went out and got himself a fucking job and earned enough to buy his own.
Yes.
Remember, Dylan's an asshole now.
Right, yes. And Sean's like kids these days with their chicken nuggets. That's hilarious.
Right. I'm sure that was a Bill Cosby routine, wasn't it? Kids these days with their popping and the burping. Wasn't it?
Why would you bring up Bill Cosby? Why would anyone bring up Bill Cosby? It's bad enough we got a Michael Jackson reference to the show this week.
Oh, no, it was a Bubbles reference.
Right, but-
Poor Bubbles.
Tim was confused about why the chimpanzee didn't go to live with other members of the family. And that just reminded me that I watched this documentary at one point with LaToya Jackson, and she goes to visit Bubbles, and she's like on one side of the cage and Bubbles is on the other side of the cage.
Tries to rip her face off.
And it's obvious that Bubbles just does not care, and that somebody behind LaToya is like
Waving
dangling
a banana.
a banana or something.
Yeah. Always with the bananas.
Always with the bananas.
At the cabin, Sean asks Brian if he has any delivery boy openings for Dylan, but not like that. Brian is dismissive, but Rita signals that they're always looking and basically okays it behind Brian's back.
Right.
And Nina rolls.
Because Brian's put off by the fact that Sean would buy his gum elsewhere if Brian no longer had. And apparently Brian is thinking about hiring a bouncer for the door of the cabin to stop shoplifters.
This is Kirk level of interaction, isn't it?
Yeah, Brian's becoming a caricature, isn't he?
Yeah. And Nina rolls later, Sean tells Dylan the good news. He's got a job at the cabin. Dylan, though, doesn't want to be a paperboy. Tough shit, says Sean. So Sean and Dylan go to the cabin where Brian does his best to interview for the position. Dylan doesn't really give a rat's ass about any of this, but it doesn't matter because when Rita comes in, she just gives him the job anyway. On Friday, Dylan is off on his first day delivering papers. He goes up to the first door, puts the paper through the letterbox. I think he's got the hang of it. Then that wee prick Mason with the awful hair shows up and takes the piss out of Dylan for his wee trolley.
His hair really is so bad.
But a wee lassie sticks up for Dylan, and Dylan seems to appreciate that.
Right, and then she makes eyes at Dylan.
Yeah.
At least Dylan's got money.
Dylan and Mason are back at Eileen's for lunch, which surprises George to see them. Glenda comes in to tell George that she'll be out at the house for a few days, and privately Mason tells Dylan to get his hands on the keys to that house so they can have a party. So when the chance presents itself, Dylan steals the keys from George's pocket for his house. Then Glenda comes in to tell George apparently that the next door neighbour over there was burgled last night, and this changes George's plans. So Dylan puts the keys back in George's pocket.
Yes.
In the cabin later, Dylan has passed his probationary period. Mason comes in and Dylan tells him that he couldn't get the key, but Mason has already told tons of people about the party. George is going to be at his house though, says Dylan. Mason tells him if that's the case, Dylan is going to need to come up with a better location. And that's as far as we get with that.
You, man.
Honest to God, what just...
You're the one who told all these people that the party was on, and he acts like he can't just send
the same message again.
The same message again. Say
off.
it's off. But he expects Dylan to make a message to everyone about the new location of the party.
And find a location.
Right. Why is Dylan hanging out with this kid?
Now, I hate this Mason guy because it reminds me too much of my own growing up and hanging around with people that I didn't like.
Right.
And who didn't like me.
Right. And who bullied other people.
Yes. I really, really hate him anyway. But I hate him even more because he's just one of these ridiculous Coronation Street baddies. Or
Yeah. He's like a caricature of a bully.
He's so not nuanced in any way.
No.
When we see him with the girls, he's playing keep away with one of their phones.
Right.
So he's just 100% an asshole.
Yeah.
All of the time.
To everyone.
People like that end up not having any friends. There has to be
Right.
some redeeming feature of him. It has to be either funny or be decent every now and again
Right.
when the mood takes him or something.
At
But to be
least-
as horrible as he is all the time,
Right.
nobody would hang about with him.
No, and he doesn't seem to have any other friends but Dylan, is the thing. You don't see any other boys hanging out with him.
Well, there was those other street thugs.
Oh, yeah, that one time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, at least ITV Corrie sort of had a personality and was attractive to girls, and his dad had a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Mason has none of that. None.
But he is of the same mold, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's just the
You
caricature
imagine-
bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. But they did a better job of drawing ITV Corrie, I think, than this kid.
Yeah.
ITV Corrie was a more well-rounded character, whereas Mason is cardboard,
Yeah, seriously.
which is no fault of the actors.
No, they just don't write these.
just
I
not-
don't know if it's a time constraint or something. It's like we don't have the time to draw this character out.
Right, because he's not going to be in it for very long.
So all you need to know is that he's a wrong un,
Right.
and that's all you're going to get.
Right. Yeah.
He has no development. He's going to be a bad guy at the start.
There will
He'll
be no
a
arc.
bad guy at the end.
Yeah.
In 6 months when his contract's up, and then that'll be the last we'll see of him.
Yeah, if he lasts 6 months. I don't think he's going to last 6 months.
I just wonder what his
And it's like,
end
why?
game's going to be.
Why? Dylan has already caught him making fun of his gay dad. Why would you want to hang out with this kid?
And he's already seen him behaving with Liam,
Right.
and also knows that he knocked that wee lassie down.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's an awful lot in the negative column for this asshole
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. And nothing in the positive.
that Dylan should be taken notice of.
Right.
Good for Liam.
Yeah.
Good for Liam to say, I ain't
Hey,
having any
yeah.
more to do with this.
No, this guy's
is
a dick.
done, right?
I'm out of here. Come with me. And Dylan, for some reason, is not. And again, it's really weird because the whole reason why he moved away from London was because of bullying. And specifically, people bullying him for having a gay dad.
Mhm. Which is happening here, except now he's friends with the guy.
Right. And refuses to stop being friends with the guy. And it's 2023. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it does hit home for me a bit. And I do understand how this happens where you're hanging out with this guy, but there's other people around, which makes it bearable. But then one by one, the other people just stop hanging about, and all of a sudden it's just you. And you're the only one that's left with this idiot. And now all your friends have gone. Now what do?
Right.
Well, if don't do what I did.
Right.
And give it a couple of years and see how it turns out.
No. Just drop this guy.
Right.
You've known Liam longer.
Yeah, great pals with him, playing FIFA on the couch and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Doing things that kids that age should probably be doing more of.
Right. And now with this kid, you're just eating food, which is probably not even Sean's food in the fridge. It's probably Eileen's. She's going to be very mad. And watching television. What kids watch television these days?
Jeez. All right. Our penultimate storyline tonight is Dick and Dom. On Wednesday, in Nina Rolls, Stu meets up with his private investigator who has come up with the square root of fuck all against Dom in her inquiries. He's as clean as the driven snow. She hands him his bill and a fancy little receipt, and he urges her to find some dirt. Back home, Stu is fussing about Eliza, who's late for dinner. She was late because of detention, because she fell asleep in class, because she'd been up all night watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre after being bet by Imogen and was too scared to sleep. Dom apparently knows nothing about this. Stu, who is always furious about something these days, is furious. When Eliza goes off for a shite, Stu rants about Dom's idea of raising kids and putting parental blocks on the TV. Yasmin and Alia pretend to give a fuck.
Right. He's like, why are there no parental controls on the TV or his computer? And I'm just sitting there like, have we ever put a parental control on an electronic device in this house?
Come into the house and Benny's watching Shameless again. I think, oh well, how about it?
Hey, we took him to see Oppenheimer, so he can watch all the boobs on television he wants. It's fine.
What really stuck in my craw was Stu calling it Texas Chainsaw.
Without the massacre?
Right.
He just called it Texas Chainsaw?
Just calls it Texas Chainsaw.
Texas Chainsaw sounds like a reality TV show in a hardware store.
It misses a vital part.
Yeah, the massacre part.
Bit.
And also, isn't it weird that the horror movie that is chosen for this is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Now, are they talking about the original or are they talking about one of the remakes?
On Netflix. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not a new movie by any stretch of the imagination.
It's from the 70s.
Right. And kids these days are more into, elite sort of.
And Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for all the commotion about it,
right.
It's more of a cerebral affair. There's very little blood in it, very little gore.
Yeah.
It's all kind of suggested.
Yeah.
It's mostly a woman screaming while a guy runs about with a chainsaw.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it should be Scream. She should have been watching Scream. There, I said it.
Or Terrifier 2. There you go.
Oh God, that would put her off.
There we go. 2.5 hours of that. Thank you very much.
And then Stu talks about himself watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all the gore and blood in it.
So maybe it is the remake then. I haven't seen it. Later, Stu is still going on about Eliza watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and when she comes downstairs from her shite, he moans at her about it and says that he'll have a word with Dom. For fuck's sake, just leave it, snaps Yasmin. Later, Dom comes to pick up Eliza. While she's getting ready, Stu immediately has a go at Dom about the detention and scary movies. Rather more calmly, Alia suggests taking her laptop at the end of the day just to remove the temptation.
Right.
Which Dom actually responds positively about.
Yes.
Stu, though, isn't done and goes on about how a good parent should set boundaries and expectations. Dom reminds Stu of where his own daughter is right now.
Yes.
That shuts him up. And when Eliza comes back, she and Dom leave, and Alia congratulates Stu on making a prize fanny out of himself and
yes.
matters worse.
Right, absolutely. And Dom says something about, wanting her to have a little bit of independence, which, fair enough. I think more parents should allow independence with their children. There are far too many helicopter parents out there. And I'm not saying this just because for most parts of every day, I'm not really sure where my children are.
Well admitted to.
I have a friend who attends dates that her daughter goes on and takes pictures of these dates and posts them on Facebook.
It depends whether you trust your kids or not.
Or you want to continue to live vicariously through your kids.
Right. It's just as well...
Or hate your husband.
It's just as well that Dom, that one time, asked for money to get out of Eliza's life.
Right.
Because if he hadn't done that, Stu would have absolutely nothing.
Right. And that's the thing. That's the thing. It's like, are they making him too reasonable?
Because he is.
Yeah.
And he's got a good response to Stu every time Stu has a dig at him about something.
Right.
Because he won that argument again.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, do you remember where your daughter is? Mm-hmm. And the fact that...
She killed somebody.
Not only did she kill somebody, she kept her mouth shut and allowed you to go to prison for it.
Yeah. That's a decent comeback.
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh, dear.
So later, Stu reminds everyone that he's Eliza's legal guardian and he has half a mind to go over there and snatch Eliza back. He's right about one thing, he does have half a mind. On Friday, at the bus stop, Sam meets with Eliza, but she's sporting a black eye now. A passing Stu demands to know what's going on. Eliza says it was in Taekwondo. Stu complains about Eliza doing martial arts when she was tired. Then thankfully, a bus arrives, putting us all out of our misery.
Right, and Eliza flirts with Sam
Just a little bit.
by asking about his relationship with Hope.
At home, Stu thinks Dom has blackened Eliza's eye and thinks Yasmin thinks the same. Yasmin does not think the same and tells him to phone Dom to get his side of the story, and in the meantime tells him to also phone the Taekwondo place to give them a call and see what they've got to say about things. But instead, Stu just calls the social services.
Well, no, in fairness to Stu, he calls the Taekwondo place
once,
multiple times, and never gets an answer.
And then gives up.
And then gives up
and calls the social services. And so Felicity comes over to quiz Eliza about her black eye. So Eliza sits with the social worker and insists it was just the Taekwondo, as she said. The social worker explains that Stu's just worried about her. Eliza says if she doesn't believe her, then speak to Frank. Frank the wank?
No.
He's the instructor.
Yeah, and, if Stu had just been honest with Eliza from the beginning, he would have gotten the name of the guy and a better phone number for the guy, and all of this could have been averted if he had just trusted his granddaughter enough to speak to her directly.
Indeed. So that's what the social worker does, and it's confirmed that the injury was sustained during a Taekwondo session. Yasmin is fucking furious that Stu didn't check before calling the social worker. Eliza storms off upstairs and Stu rubs his eyes. He does that a lot.
He does.
Eliza is ready to storm off when Dom arrives to pick her up. He's already been tipped off about what's happened today. He says he was also alarmed when he saw the black eye and says it's no harm done.
Right, yeah, and he completely understands why they would have called the social worker.
Again, utterly reasonable.
Totally reasonable.
And Stu can't even bear to really thank him for being so reasonable. Yasmin tells him he needs to stop this obsession before everyone just switches off their TV. At the bistro later, Stu and Yasmin are having a meal, but when he gets his wallet to pay, the receipt from the private investigator falls out, and Yasmin sees it. And if she was fucking furious before, she's fucking even more furious now. Calling social services was misjudged, but this is willing Dom to be bad, she says. He's been assessed. He has to trust the social services. This should be enough. And she orders Stu to call off the private eye.
Yeah, which the private eye had already said to him, look, you don't need me. It's fine. Was it weird that when it fell out, Yasmin bent down to pick it up and then immediately unfolded it to see what it was?
Yes. Yeah, just pick up and hand it back.
Yeah.
It's not your piece of paper.
Right. What is this?
We'll see somebody else unfolding the piece of paper multiple times later on. I can't really describe how far my heart sank when the first scene of this storyline happened this week and we realised, we're getting more of this week. Because I absolutely hate it. I hate what they've done with Stu.
Yeah.
I hate that this is just so low stakes but being played out to be this major storyline that requires Stu to be furious all the time and always upset about something.
And so overbearing.
Ugh.
Shut up, Granddad.
Literally.
You know what? Eliza learned a lesson about her tolerance for horror movies. And that's good. It's good to let kids do things that might scare them and might harm them a little bit while they are still under your care rather than when they are out in the world and making dumb decisions.
You're going to say when they're out in the woods.
Well, the woods are in the world. So, at least she's watched it. She will never watch it again. And she knows now she doesn't like horror movies.
These things do have an impact on you. I remember when I stayed over with my granddad when I was a wee boy and we watched The Eyes of Laura Mars, which has a woman getting stabbed in the eye. And that just did me. And I still kind of get a bit squeamish when things with eyes are happening. Just, who wants to see that?
Yeah. I mean, my parents took me to see R-rated movies like Dancing with Wolves.
That was R-rated?
That was R-rated. And I didn't realize it until many, many years later when
It's
somebody was
also
talking.
4 hours long, isn't it?
Yeah. We're just walking through the mall and we're like, oh, let's go see a movie. All right, we'll watch this Kevin Costner one. Because everybody loved Kevin Costner back then, remember?
Was this before Waterworld? Must have been.
Yeah, because we also saw, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and everybody loved it because of
Yeah.
that Bryan Adams song.
Yeah, Dances with Wolves is PG-13.
Is it? Mm-hmm. It used to be R, I think. I think because of the blood.
It also says it was only 3 hours. I was sure it was 4.
Who knows?
Oh, well.
And also we rented a dog and his boy from the movie place. Remember when movie places were a thing?
Movie places? What's a movie place?
Blockbuster.
Oh, the video store.
Yeah. Only ours was Video Galaxy.
So what you said in Connecticut called video store was too common for you. You had to call it the movie place.
Yes. And my parents didn't really check. And I was like, oh, there's a dog in this movie. I want to see this movie.
Yeah.
And my parents are like,
There's
oh,
a
yeah,
dog. There's a dog in Cujo.
there's a dog in this movie. Yes, but that is Stephen King's name written very clearly on it, whereas this did not. And we got like 15 minutes in, and my mom's like, nope.
That was me in Kentucky Fried Movie. That's what happened to me.
And it's because of boobies.
Yeah, I just really hate Stu's character now.
Yeah, me too.
I'm done with it. I've had enough.
And it makes me so sad because he was so delightful when he started.
He was a bit grumpy to start with as well, though.
Right.
But when he was with Kelly, he was much, much better.
Yeah.
Then he
Yeah,
had that cough that should have killed him and didn't.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny because the show was originally intending to kill him off with that cough.
Had to be.
And yet everybody loved Stu, so they had to keep him on.
And then they
And then
him
they
an
had
asshole.
to figure out another storyline for him. And that's when we found out that he had gone away for murder.
Yeah, we didn't care
Which
about that because we didn't know who he murdered. We didn't care about his
Right.
daughter and his ex-wife.
No.
We didn't care about Lennox, the potentially corrupt cop. Didn't care about that.
No.
Don't really care about Eliza.
Oh,
So
man, did
all of
that
this-
fall through the corrupt cop part.
So all of this is just so low stakes and
He's
it's
a
taking
corrupt
up
cop.
far too much time.
But now he has Alzheimer's, so it doesn't matter. So we built this whole thing up. We built this whole thing up.
Poor Lennox boobs.
Poor Alia sitting up all hours, listening to hours and hours of taped interviews.
Oh, God, yes.
And then it turned into nothing.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
Turning into nothing. Let's...
Alia has had really, really sucky years the past 2 years, hasn't she?
I feel particularly sorry for the scenes that she was in where it was obviously Yasmin that was supposed to be there.
Right.
And she was standing in for this boring shit. Oh, poor Alia.
Poor Alia.
All right, our final storyline is not only but also fans. Last week, racist Kelly is surprised when Ryan doesn't want to be her mate anymore. Daisy approaches her in Nina's roles and tells her in no uncertain terms that this cash cow is over, and if racist Kelly tries anything like this again, she'll be on the receiving end of a boot to the pie. So Daisy is shocked when later she finds racist Kelly in her home getting English lessons from Daniel. Later, Ryan learns that racist Kelly's 17 and not 20, as she'd said, and she'd lied to get the flat. Ryan admits to Debbie about his feelings for Daisy, and she advises him to back off. During this, Daniel observes the death anniversary of Sinead, and then suggests to Daisy that he sells his mum's house, which is now empty, and buys Tim's mum's flat instead.
Fuck off, refugees.
Daisy is less than enthusiastic, and no one suggests just moving into Daniel's mum's house
Right, which
on
is
its own.
what they should do.
Yeah. On Monday, at the precinct flat, racist Kelly is still trying to pretend that everything is cool between her and Ryan. He's working all the hours that he can get to recoup the money that he had to pay her, is in no mood for bants, and insists they're not friends, and she takes a huff. At the bistro, Nick has got some...
Ryan will not be there for her when the rain starts to fall.
No. At the bistro, Nick has got some spooky mannequins, and he demonstrates by throwing a sheet over one of them to prove how scary it is, which we only get one little bit of Mary this week, and that's when she pretends to be a ghost.
Well, no, because she's at the party. She's dressed as Queen Elizabeth.
I guess.
And it was hilarious because there's a weird scene during the party with Mary, which is weird. But we get a Doctor Who reference this week.
Oh, yes.
Because
and
Daisy says-
rolls her eyes at it.
Daisy says, it's very Doctor Who with the mannequins. And I appreciated that.
Nick softly weeps. Ryan comes in and confirms his availability for a spooky playlist. Ryan chats with a distracted Daisy later. She's having a hard time dealing with him and racist Kelly and the Sinead death-anniversary. Ryan decides to be a bit of a prick this week and suggests to her that she's staying with Daniel out of pity or guilt, and says that she channels the hard version of herself and asks who she would rather be with.
Yeah. Ryan is a bit creepy this week.
Yep.
He's a bit, I don't want to say incel-y because they've had sex, but not taking no for an answer and misunderstanding consent and thinking that bullying a woman into a relationship with you is the way to go.
Bullying the woman who has sexually assaulted you.
Right.
Ryan is back home.
Nobody remembers that though.
Well, they did. Ryan is back home for some reason and notices racist Kelly's phone getting notifications from Ovids. She comes out in a sexy leopard print crop top and snaps at him for being home early. He's more concerned that she's underage and doing porn. She reminds him that they're not mates, tells him that he doesn't give a shit about her. He tells her it's illegal, but she doesn't think anyone cares and was doing it because he made a packet out of it. He's shocked that she could have got the idea from him and threatens to report her to the site. She tells him if he does that, guess what? She's going to grass him up to Daniel, and she storms out.
Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but Ryan's right. Because the site can get into big trouble for peddling child porn.
Yes.
Racist Kelly doesn't seem to understand that it's not that they care about, it's not that the site cares about her. The site cares about being in trouble with the authorities.
Well, it should do.
It should, but that's not why they care
and
about
sometimes
this.
it doesn't. I mean, I think OnlyFans has had quite a bit of bother with this in the past. Ryan is running around Coronation Street looking for Lorne and bumps into Daisy. He explains to her that racist Kelly is making mucky videos like he used to do, masturbating for gay men. He also tells her about racist Kelly threatening to tell Daniel if Ryan grasses her up to Ovids, but that's what he's done anyway. Daisy reckons this is win-win for Ryan. He gets to be the good guy and also split her and Daniel up. He says he's just doing the right thing. So Daisy gets home and is shocked to find racist Kelly there getting an English assignment from Daniel, but not like that. They're reading Roddy Doyle. Racist Kelly announces that they've just got to a good bit where the kid is looking for signs for his dad's affair. Daisy quietly seethes. She thinks on her feet and says Roy is looking for her to pay her money that he owes her from the cafe, 200 quid. Racist Kelly says he owes her 500. Daniel suddenly remembers that he has to go trick-or-treating with Bertie, so fucks off in the middle of the tutoring session and leaves Daisy and racist Kelly alone. This was the weirdest scene.
It was.
I'm teaching you a lesson. Oh, I've remembered that I've got to go with Bertie, who's dressed up as a vampire. See you later. Mm-hmm. Was he just going to leave racist Kelly alone in his flat if Daisy wasn't there? Just the strangest scene.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Bertie does make a very cute vampire, though.
He does, and he runs about later, and Sam thinks he's full of sugar.
Yes.
Daisy says...
Which is a myth.
What, that's the problem that you got with it?
Well, no.
Not the vampires?
No, I'm just pointing out that it's a myth that sugar makes your kids high. Or not high. Well, yeah.
It does give you energy. That's what it's designed to do.
Right.
So having too much of it can give you too much energy.
Right.
So you feel that you need to run about.
But that's a myth.
I think that's a myth. Daisy says that they can't afford to pay her anything else, and Ryan was doing the right thing, and that was a mistake for them to sleep together. She knows racist Kelly has made mistakes and knows what it's like. She doesn't want to break up with Daniel, but enough is enough. Tell him or don't tell him. She doesn't care anymore. Racist Kelly sighs and says that she won't tell Daniel. She never wanted involved in this in the first place. And she hopes someone does tell him anyway. At the bistro later, Daisy is late and now dressed like Catwoman. Ryan is a horny devil and he's also in a Halloween costume. Ryan wants to talk, but Daisy quickly tells him that racist Kelly won't say anything and then rushes off to see Daniel and Bertie. Ryan keeps at Daisy to get a minute and she snaps back at him, which is seen by Daniel, who moses over and asks if everything's okay. She says it is, so he and Bertie leave, and all of that is seen by saucy devil Ryan. Then later, racist Kelly comes in, and at some point Ryan has been updated by Daisy. Racist Kelly again seems super keen to be friendly, but Ryan now says he's going to move out after all, which gets her back up in the huff again. And all of this is seen by Daisy. Ryan pesters Daisy again, and she reluctantly suggests that they meet in the office later, and all that is seen by Debbie. And every single bit of this is seen by us.
Right. Did you notice? It's a Halloween party.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's in a costume, except for Daniel.
He's dressed like a fanny.
Is he sexy English teacher zombie?
Daniel, you've come as a fanny again.
I was just really disappointed that for all of the talk about Gary's gold lame costume, he comes as Frankenstein instead.
That was quite funny. And I thought him and Maria were quite cute together.
They were. More of that, please. We really like them as a couple. Why can't we get more of the people we like?
So later in the office, Ryan and Daisy finally get some time alone, and he turns on the prickness again, reckoning that she wants to be with him more than Daniel. He kisses her and she pushes him away. He suggests going away tomorrow night and says that he'll book a hotel room, and she agrees. He kisses her again, and this time she kisses him back. When she leaves the office, Bad Penny Daniel has turned up again looking for a drink with Daisy, and he sees over her shoulder a flustered Ryan leave the office too, and now Daniel is finally very suspicious.
Yes.
On Wednesday at home, Daisy announces that she's staying at her mum's tonight. Daniel is suspicious and shows a picture that either he or Bertie drew of her being part of the family, and this does nothing really to guilt Daisy into a change of heart.
It does a little bit.
Not that you notice.
No, but he's very concerned about her going to see her mum because I don't know why.
Because he's a controlling shitbag.
Well, yes, there's that.
Daniel goes to Nina's Rolls with some homework for Racist Kelly. She's ready to pack the whole thing in, but Daniel talks her around because she's apparently got good banter. Well, compared to Daniel. Max employs reverse psychology to bet at what result she's going to get in the exam.
That was cute. I liked that scene.
Debbie goes to see Ryan, who's still at Racist Kelly's for some reason. She has a job for him to DJ a Sweet 16 party. She sees his bags, so he announces that he has a hotel date with Daisy in town. Debbie's disappointed, but Ryan insists that she's taken a risk for him and he deserves to be happy. So Debbie comes round and offers him a suite at the Rape Hotel instead. But she still disapproves. Yes, Go to a hotel that's closer to Coronation Street. That's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
Meanwhile, Jenny goes round to visit Daisy as she's about to leave, and so Daisy confesses her plans to Jenny.
Right, because Daniel has grassed Daisy up about going to stay with her mom, and Jenny is in a very big huff about it.
Right. Daisy says that she's drowning and she doesn't know what to do. Ryan is all she can think about. A sprightly Ryan skips the streetcars to hail a cab. The Rape Hotel, good gentleman, he instructs, and don't spare the horses. As he jumps into the cab, Daniel sees and overhears this and is up to his tits with suspicions now. Daisy reveals to Jenny how much she thinks how beautiful a person Ryan is, and Jenny reminds him what she's thrown away with Daniel and Bertie. Daisy says that she loves them both, and she's terrified Daniel will find out. That will definitely happen, says Jenny.
Right. Do you know what street you live on?
Right. Back home, Daniel finds Daisy's charger, tries to call her, but goes straight to voicemail, and this gives him a reasonable excuse to call Christina, Daisy's mum. He asks to speak with Daisy, but according to Christina, Daisy's not there. And Christina seems to be savvy enough to play along, though, and seems to say that she's not there yet. But this doesn't stop Daniel's suspicions breaching his tits.
Correct.
At the Rape Hotel, Daisy wants to get out of sight as quickly as possible, and Ryan maintains his new asshole persona by loudly saying that Daisy's keen.
Yeah, that was such a shit. She wants to get out because she doesn't want people to recognize her.
Right.
And that really upset me.
Yeah. In the room, Ryan is keen to start smooching, but Daisy doesn't feel right. He says they're like two magnets that keep getting attracted to each other, and I guess he must mean different poles of two magnets because the same poles famously repel. Mm-hmm. She seems to have made up her mind though. It's not right, she says, and she says that she loves Daniel and she doesn't want to be that person. Ryan tries to spin this, but it's no good. Meanwhile, Daniel's turned up at the bar of the Rape Hotel, and the show tries to show his increasing paranoia, I guess, by having the sound muted and various shots of him spinning round. It's awful. Stop doing that.
Yes.
He heads off to the rooms and starts randomly knocking on doors. And
Which is hilarious.
He's about to hit the fire alarm when a custodian starts questioning him. Ryan and Daisy overhear this. She wonders how he knows. Ryan admits that he told Debbie, which pisses Daisy off even though she told Jenny. The custodian threatens Daniel with the cops, meanwhile, and he leaves the corridor. Ryan checks and sees him gone. They're safe for now, but Daisy knows that Daniel doesn't trust her. Can you blame him? Says Ryan. Ryan starts packing and suggests that they get their stories straight and thinks it'll be a matter of time before she runs back to him. She says she deserves better and apologises for stringing him along. They agree that he leaves and she might as well enjoy the facilities on her own, cheeky cow. Ryan files into the bistro later and sits with Debbie where he is seen by Jenny, but before Ryan can tell Debbie anything, Daniel is over in a flash demanding to know where he's been and who he's been with. The two of them bicker. Ryan tells Daniel to spit it out if he has an accusation. Daniel thinks he should just do the decent thing and admit it. Debbie has had enough of this Willy swinging contest and says that Ryan was doing handyman work for her at the hotel. Daniel apologises for his paranoia. We've all been there, says Ryan. A little too on the nose. And Daniel slinks out. And Daniel calls Daisy and she answers him this time. Daniel quickly twigs that she's in the hotel and she admits to falling out with Christina.
Right, because room service knocks on the door.
Housekeeping! Housekeeping! And so she got a hotel for the night. He wonders how she could afford it. She explains that she put it on her credit card. She tells him that she loves him and then hangs up. On Friday, in the precinct, Daisy meets with her mum. Christina's back. Daisy apologises for yesterday. Her mum wants an explanation. I was...
She's like the British Kathleen Turner, isn't she?
I don't like Christina at all, but I like the dysfunctional relationship she has
with Daisy.
It's unusual, and I kind of like that. At number one, Daniel can't get over the coincidence of Daisy being at a hotel and Ryan being at a hotel. Wow. He can't ignore the tension between them when they're together. Ken warns Daniel to tread carefully, but tells him to speak with Daisy. Meanwhile, Ryan is finally packing up his room at Racist Kelly's. She doesn't want him to leave like this and apologises for messing up and blackmailing him and all that sort of fun stuff.
Are we ever going to find out why she needed the money? It kind of feels like we're never going to find out why she needed the money.
And nobody's asking anymore.
No.
She tells him that he's one of the few people that she cares about and who care about her. He says he still does care and agrees to be mates again. I never once thought that they were mates. They were flatmates. I never thought they were mates.
Well, remember like that one cute scene where they're watching TV together and sharing a bowl of popcorn?
That one time?
Yeah, that one time. And then she fucks that up by trying to blackmail him like the very next day.
Friends.
Let's remember how dysfunctional this character is.
I suppose. But Ryan's gone along with it.
She's never really had any normal socialization in her life.
And she still hasn't had a redemption arc and she still hasn't apologised to Alia.
It's true.
Post-explanation, Christina thinks that Apple hasn't fallen far from the tree and reckons that she's just like her dad. Daisy doesn't think it's anything like that. It wasn't something that she did because she was bored. Her mum asks if she loves Ryan. Daisy doesn't want to talk about it with her, but needs a favour and asks Christina to cover for her if Daniel calls her. Christina seems to think about it. And later, Daniel does indeed phone Christina and asks about the argument that they had last night. Christina covers, says it wasn't worth Daisy walking out about and wasn't worth her walking out on the meal. And this appears to satisfy Daniel, who must know everything that Daisy does at all times. But when they hang up, he's far from happy. Something about that meal that Christina mentioned.
Right.
Daisy gets home and has just sat down when fucking Daniel appears from nowhere. He asks her how her night was at the hotel and then asks which one it was. She tells him the grand and asks what all this fucking questions are about. He asks if she was with Ryan and she pretends to be shocked. He asks what street her hotel was on and asks for proof that she was there, like a receipt. So Daisy punches herself in the face with a brick. She is fucking furious about this.
Right.
Despite lying.
Right.
I still think she has a right to be furious about this.
Right. Because it's just like, how many times does Daniel have to be proven wrong before he lets this go?
Right. She wonders if he's going to check up with her teachers as well. She produces a receipt and then storms off. And he looks at it once, apologises, and when she runs off crying, he looks at it again. He has a closer look at it to make sure that it's authentic. He's so controlling and horrible.
He's so horrible. Why does she want to stay with him?
This is a worst love triangle.
Right, because both of the men are horrible.
And she's a liar and has sexually assaulted one of them.
Right.
The worst love triangle.
Right.
Not all triangles are love triangles if you love triangles.
No. All triangles are love triangles if you love triangles.
So, back at Racist Kelly's, he decides to fill her in on what she missed at the rape hotel. And I'm like, why are you telling her this?
No. Yeah. Why? Why? It makes no sense. Why would you tell somebody? Remember when she was blackmailing you?
Remember that blackmail thing that happened?
Remember that?
It was because of information like this that allowed her to blackmail you.
Right.
She thinks that if he had accidentally deliberately revealed himself, he could have got the girl in the end. She thinks Daisy doesn't deserve either of them, and Racist Kelly's bang on the money there.
Right, but they also, neither one of them deserve her.
No. Daisy and Jenny meet up in Nina's Rolls. Turns out she suspected she'd have to prove herself to Daniel, so snuck off to the Grand Hotel last night after all. She says Daniel and Bertie are her focus from now on. And the whole thing with the meal was she'd said that she was going out for a drink.
Right. Yeah. Daisy had said they'd gone out for a drink, whereas, her mom said a meal. And so he gives her the third degree about that. You said drinks, but your mom said a meal.
Right.
And she's like, we got nachos. If my mom thinks that's a meal, fine.
Right, which remember is a lie, but still, just that doesn't mean that Daniel's not being unreasonable here.
Correct.
So Daniel grabs Ryan in the street and is furious that Ryan isn't furious about this. There's no pleasing this prick. There really isn't.
It's like, why aren't you mad that I'm accusing you of these things? And why can't you look me in the eye? Daisy looks me in the eye. Why don't you look me in the eye?
So Ryan finally admits that he told Daisy that he loves her. Daniel says, well, how do you expect me to react like that? I don't give a fuck what you do, says Ryan. Daniel scowls like he's a hard man and tells Ryan to stay away. So Daniel goes home and tells Daisy that he knows, and there's a bit of potential confusion here, but it's quickly dispelled. He knows that Ryan told her that he loved her. Daisy said that she was just letting Ryan get it off his chest and didn't tell Daniel because she didn't want to upset him. Daniel explains all the lengths that he went to in a jealous rage. Daisy wants to know if Daniel hit Ryan. He says he didn't and seems annoyed that she asked or cared. Daisy goes to see Ryan, who is still at Racist Kelly's. She thanks him for throwing himself under the bus, but reminds him that this needs to end, and she apologises and says goodbye. He reminds her that she's the one in his flat.
Right.
They hug, and she leaves, and all of this is seen by Racist Kelly. Later, Racist Kelly is at Daniel's getting another tutoring session, this time on The Great Gatsby.
Yes, they've moved on quite quickly from Roddy Doyle, haven't they?
Yes. Her mind is elsewhere, which he notices, and she blames the book, saying everyone's awful in it because they're all cheating on each other. Racist Kelly apparently doesn't approve of cheating. And there's this weird few moments where it's unclear if they're talking about The Great Gatsby or if they're talking about Coronation Street.
Right, because both have a Daisy in it.
Right, and then there's that weird moment where Racist Kelly says Daisy's name and Daniel shits himself and just wanders off again, leaving Racist Kelly in the house.
Right.
Daisy and Jenny are in the bistro when she gets a message from Daniel. He wants to meet at Red Bank, so Daisy fucks off to get there because her master has beckoned her. So at Tim's mum's, Daniel announces that he's put in an offer on the flat like they talked about and put his mum's house on the market like they talked about, but not only had they talked about it, she'd asked him to delay it.
Right.
She thinks this is about Ryan. He says it's not and says this is new beginnings. And that's how we end this week's episodes.
And, as we pan up, we notice that Daniel has his arms around Daisy. Daisy's arms are down at her sides.
So this was his big gesture, I think.
Right. To say, I'm sorry I accused you and was so jealous, but also I'm going to ensure you can never escape from me again.
Right. And I'm going to do the thing that we talked about and you expressly asked me not to.
Yeah, not to do.
Congratulations.
Right.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah. And it's like, she's like, I don't have a job really right now, right?
Which was her excuse last week.
And he's like, no, it's fine. I will pay for everything because I'm the man.
And because I've sold my mum's house.
Right.
Which he probably hasn't done quite yet, so...
Right, he's put it on the market, I guess. But it's so weird because it's like, you got your mum's house free and clear. Mm-hmm. Why not just live in it?
Especially now that you probably want to get out of Dodge because to get away from Ryan.
Right?
This makes even more sense. Makes it a tougher sell for Daisy, certainly, but she's not really in a position where she can disagree with us now because... But is there anything about the way that Daniel's behaved during this that even if you are a liar and a cheater, you're going to think, this is the man that I'm putting all my effort and energy into. This is a relationship with this controlling maniac
Right.
who was running round a hotel corridor in the middle of the night,
And
waking people up.
And almost pulled the alarm on.
This is not normal behaviour.
It's not. At
There's
all.
one thing to be jealous, and there's one thing to go and punch Ryan.
Right.
But this behaviour that's underneath all this, where he's trying to prove that she's up to no good,
Yeah.
and then can't do it,
Right.
and then starts to make these ridiculous demands of her, like,
Right.
what street's it on? Where's it near?
Right.
Give me the receipt. How many red flags does this guy need to be waving here?
Right.
She needs to get the fuck away from this one, and she needs to get the fuck away from the other one as well.
Right. Yeah. Because he's essentially bullying her into picking him, which is not the way that you go about it.
Right.
You know, accusing her of, you know, thinking that you know everything about her relationship with the other man to the point where you're like, oh, you're only with him because he's sad.
Yeah. Or you're doing this out
I'm
of
better
guilt.
for you. It's like, no, you're not. And it just makes me so mad because, again, Alia's sitting right there and she and Ryan made the best couple.
They were lovely together.
And they were so lovely together. And Alia is 100% trustworthy and good and kind and nice and not seeing anybody. Free and clear.
It's the lack of self-awareness when Ryan says that you're only staying with Daniel out of guilt.
Right.
Well, why do you think should be with you?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
A different kind of guilt?
Yeah.
Still guilt.
Right.
And then, this kind of face to heel of Ryan in the last couple of weeks, where he's just been. This is not Ryan behaviour that we know,
Right.
and has not been Ryan. Like, I don't remember seeing Ryan like this. Maybe back when he was getting involved with the drugs with Ronan and stuff, when he was more kind of selfish.
Right.
But
And showing up at his mom's house drunk. Remember that?
oh, yes, just that it's the most bizarre love triangle where you don't.
You're not rooting for anybody.
There's no combination that works here.
No.
Maybe Ryan and Daniel.
Yeah. Yes. Maybe.
Out of all of them, that's
Yeah.
probably the one that.
Yeah, because it doesn't really feel... I don't find any of this romantic at all.
No, of course it isn't.
And I don't find... You know, because it feels like the show wants us to find it romantic and wants us to find that whole magnet line romantic when it's just fucking creepy. And as you pointed out, not how magnets work.
No. Somebody said on Twitter, what he must have meant to say was, I'm a magnet and you're a paperclip.
Right.
And well, yeah, that works. That's much better.
Yeah.
Still a terrible sentiment, but
Right. Yeah.
but there you go.
Like you have no choice. You must be with me. It's physics.
It impresses me how wonderful Debbie is at lying.
She's so good.
Debbie's contributions. I see quite a lot of people complaining about Debbie. Just she's so boring and what she bringing in. I'm like, are we watching the same show? I think
Boring?
Debbie is awesome.
Debbie is fantastic. And I love the fact that she's getting this chance to be like the stand-in mother for Ryan because Michelle is never coming back and
No.
Carla's fucked off to Spain.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so she gets to be the mom here a little bit. And I love that relationship she has with Ryan that is forged in them attempting to rob the bistro.
Yes.
That's the only foundation this relationship has. But I love it.
Yeah, that's
And, you know, and both she and Jenny are both so reasonable when they're talking to their, you know,
yeah, their half that they're interested in.
their half, you know, because Jenny's like, you know, Jenny's not berating Daisy. She's not yelling at her. She's not calling her stupid or Fanny or anything. You know, she just points out the fact that Bertie is a thing.
Yeah. Although
Not that a child is a reason to stay in a relationship.
Oh, good God, no. But we never see Daisy and Bertie interacting anymore.
Well, we did. We saw her like rush up to him twice.
Did we?
Yeah,
I
she
almost
rushed
missed
up. She rushed up to him in the house when he first walked out like a vampire, and then the second time in the bistro when he walked in as a vampire with his boring dad who can't be bothered to put on a costume
He did have a
to
man
go
back
to a
there.
Halloween party.
Like,
You'd think that the show would do something like very self-aware, like dress him up like Thoreau or Whitman or something.
dress him up as somebody and nobody knows who he's dressed up as.
Right, yeah. And then when you find out who it is, you're like, oh yeah, of course.
Or I don't know who that is.
Everybody knows who Henry David Thoreau is, don't they?
Well, it doesn't have to be that though, does it?
No. I did like the Halloween party though. It was nice once again to see a whole bunch of characters in a room together.
Yeah, the bistro seems to work quite well for that. There's
Yeah.
more space, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if the whole reason for closing the Rovers down is to revamp it inside so it's more like that. So there's more open space for people to
Right, which
to
would
congregate.
make filming easier.
Yeah.
Because the old Rovers in like classic Corrie, you can tell that there are spaces that you don't see that the camera sits in, you know, to be able to film all of those people in the Rovers, you know. And I loved Mary putting on that sheet to scare Ryan, and Ryan knowing immediately that it was Mary.
Yeah.
And then at the party where I think it was Gary who said, you know, oh, go hang out with the other ladies. And she says, I think I will. And then she goes in and Debbie is making a bawdy joke about a penis or something. And Mary says, no, maybe not, which is ridiculous because if anybody has a very bawdy sense of humor and is quite frank about wanting to have sex with celebrities,
Ben Shepherd, watch out.
it's Mary.
It is indeed.
As long as it's Ben Shepherd and not Ben Shapiro.
Well, that was the week that was Coronation Street. Tell me, Helen, what was your moment of the week?
Steve and Tim fishing?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Despite the Tracy aspects
The weird
of
Tracy
it.
stuff.
Yeah,
It
I thought that was lovely.
It was nice to see the two of them together just hanging out and bonding.
Kind of reminiscent of the show that they referenced, the Gone Fishing show with Paul
Right.
Whitehouse and Bob Mortimer, just having the two of them sitting about fishing and shooting the shit is
Right.
just delightfully relaxing.
Yeah, because, you know, remember back in the day where just randomly we'd go to Tim and Steve and they've got packing tape wrapped around themselves acting like dinosaurs?
Oh, how could we forget?
I miss those days.
It's an unusual week where you don't mention that. But
one-
yeah, Tim and Steve fishing, that is our
Moment of the week.
One of the week.
your boredom moment of the week.
Daniel walking into a Halloween party without a costume on.
It's got to be. You know, all those moments as well where they're just, people are staring at each other. It's like the meerkat just popping
Right.
up and just staring. And I appreciate this doesn't come across all that well on the podcast, but imagine meerkats, you get the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel's fanny costume for the Halloween party. That is our
Boring moment of the week.
So what is your score out of 10 this week, Helen?
4.
Really as bad as that?
Yeah, because it's just far too much of the stupid. The only part I liked was the Tim and Steve storyline, including the maggots.
Yeah, I was looking at the Friday storylines and thinking which one of these do I really, really like and enjoy. And I don't mind parts of the love triangle storyline. It's not the best, but
No.
I'm enjoying being able to be angry at Daniel and not feel like I'm picking on him.
Right.
But
I mean, this is the thing. The few good bits in that storyline, like them juxtaposing Ryan talking to Debbie with Jenny talking to Daisy about this whole thing. It's just kind of ruined by how absolutely terrible the people who are actually in the love triangle
yeah,
are
I know.
acting.
I agree. I think I'm going to give it a 6 this week. It was fine. It just wasn't great, but honest to God, get that stew stuff and
Yeah, it makes me sad. The stew thing makes me sad.
Yeah. This week's episode was brought to you with thanks to our friends of the podcast, Daisy, French Helen,
Yay!
Pickles,
Yay!
DT,
Yay!
Trisha,
Yay!
Wendy,
Yay!
and Noel.
Woohoo!
Whew. If you've ever been a horny devil, write in to tell us about it. We're the talk of the street at gmail.com.
Please, no pictures.
And we're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. You can shout me and Helen a coffee or become a friend of the podcast by heading to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/the talk of the street. Check out the clicky section of voggle.co.uk for links to our merch store and YouTube channel. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. And be sure to check out our pop culture sister podcast, The List of Lists. Thanks for making it to the end of another episode.
Thank you.
And we will be back next week with more
Talk of the street.
Talk of the Street.
Bye.
Cheerio.